The unions wanted you to abolish or wanted you to propose the abolition of 0 hours contracts. Why didn't you do that?
Because most people who have 0 hours contracts choose them and want them. They find that flexibility fits their lifestyle. There is, however, an issue about people who have been on long-term 0 hours contracts and who would like fixed hours. And so we have a number of recommendations which hopefully will lead to more employers offering more hours, guaranteeing more hours to workers. But my general approach is not to use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. If a form of employment, whether it's gig work or 0 hours work, is generally speaking one that people choose to do, we shouldn't stop them doing it, but we should make sure they get the protections that they need, and also we should make sure that the way in which those companies are organised fits in with not just our regulatory system but also our tax system.
Now, the business sector bit grumpy about some of your proposals as well. I mean, you're proposing a premium for some 0 hours workers. They don't like that. And you're also you're proposing doing away with the Swedish derogation.
The Swedish derogation.
Yes, which allows...
Trips off the tongue.
Indeed it does. So this is basically giving temp workers the same rights as permanent employees. They don't like that either.
So let's look at both those proposals. So the first proposal is that, which we're referring to the Low Pay Commission, is that if you have a 0 hours or low hours contract, you would get extra money for the hours you're asked to work, but that you're not guaranteed. And the aim of that is it might put a bit more money into the pocket of people on minimum wage, but more importantly, it might encourage employers to think a bit more creatively about how, instead of transferring all the risk onto the shoulders of employees, they might guarantee those employees more hours. Because if you are guaranteed no hours or very few hours, it's hard to get a mortgage, it's hard to get a loan. So that's the first proposal. In a way, it's a kind of notion of overtime, that if you're a minimum wage and you're asked to work more hours than you're guaranteed, that you should get an overtime payment. The second proposal is that the Swedish derogation... Now, what we guarantee in this country is that if you're an agency worker and you work for 12 weeks alongside another worker who's permanent, at the end of that 12 weeks, you should get the same terms and conditions as the person you're working alongside. Unfortunately, the Swedish derogation, which is in a way of avoiding that, has been misused, and we didn't just hear from trade unions that have been misused, we heard from agencies. In fact, agencies said to us, we get asked by employers to use this as a kind of fiddle to avoid people getting these rights, and we don't particularly like doing it. So actually all the things agencies can do, they can carry on doing, but this Swedish derogation has been too widely abused. And in fact, I asked employers' organisations when I talked to them about this some time ago to tell me how an alternative means for cracking down on this without getting rid of it, and they didn't come back to me. So I'm afraid getting rid of it is the best thing we can do.
All right. Well, one of the other interesting recommendations you made, you point out that there is an uneven treatment on taxation between self-employed and employed workers. Philip Hammond would agree with that wholeheartedly. You want the playing field levelled, but is that realistic given the government's setback on this in the Commons recently?
Yeah, look, we've added our voice to many other reports, the Merleys report many years ago, the IFS, the Office of Budget Responsibility, all of whom recognise that at the moment we probably tax self-employed labour too little. So if you go back to the beginning of the welfare state, at that point the amount of money we raised in tax from self-employed labour was about 2/3 of what we raised from the labour of employed people. It's now 1/3. And as that gap has grown bigger, self-employment has grown. So probably over the medium term, we need to think about how those of us who pay for labour pay a similar amount for self-employed labour as we do for employed labour. Otherwise, not only will we get a hole in our finances, it creates perverse incentives for people to disguise employment as self-employment to avoid that tax burden.
Very brief last question. Do you think this is going to get off the runway, given Theresa May's lack of a minority?
You know, I'm confident. I've been up and down the country talking about good work. The public like the idea of good work. Many of these recommendations are supported by trade unions or business organisations. Once we get away from the ideological battle and focus on the specifics, I'm confident that a lot of these ideas will be accepted.
All right, Matthew Taylor, long day for you. Appreciate you coming in. Thank you.